And then I'll be on Zoom on this one. So you can, I can have the same desktop as you. Okay, so one of the skill sets that's highly demanded in IT or cybersecurity is packet analysis or network analysis. You would see that Wireshark is a common tool that a lot of security professionals and a lot of IT people know. Your other option would be Snort. There are endless amount of network analyzer, but Snort been around for a long time as well. So Wireshark is free and you can find the information on the link, or you can go to wireshark.org. And here you can download the applications. You can also go through their documentation. I believe like if you are a member, you can probably have access to some resources, some training resources. So you can also use their sample captures. So what we can do is we can use Wireshark as an application to record the network activities that's happening at a certain moment in time. Just kind of like putting a camera on your traffic light and see all the cars that are passing by, right? And then we can go back and play. So some of you are in my forensic class. You actually have the experience in looking at a malware coming through the network through a capture. And so you can go back and identify incidents and things like attacks from using Network Protocol Analyzer. So this is some resources for you, and they also have their own certification. So here it talks about that. We already installed Wireshark for you on the computer, so you don't have to do that. But if you do this on your own computer at home or on your laptop now, you need to install Wireshark. So let's open it up by using the Windows search bar right here on the bottom and type in Wireshark. If you install the Wireshark, you actually have to install npcap, which is a package for your network adapter to be able to sense all the activity, the network activities around it. Click Wireshark to open your app. Now, if you get prompted an update, right, like this, you can just close it. You don't have the privilege to install updates anyway. So click the X for the update prompt. And Wireshark apps look like this. So what you're gonna do is you are gonna select your adapter. So if you're using a laptop that has, or a system like Alienware that has an Ethernet adapter and a Wi-Fi adapter and they're both on, you can select a certain adapter to use. If I'm specifically looking for wireless devices, right, and do certain things with the network monitor, like for example, right, like people say not to access public Wi-Fi because someone on it, they can use the Wireshark app like this to see everything that you're doing on your system. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna select your adapter, click Ethernet. Usually it would have the little line graph. And if you have a Wi-Fi, your Wi-Fi would also have the line graph if it's on. So I would double click it or select it and then click the blue fin at the top left. You see the blue fin here? Click the Ethernet and then click the blue fin. So at this point, you are going to record everything that's happening right now, right? On our segment of the network. We're going to generate traffic by opening our browser. And we're going to visit this website, or you can do control and press the info cern. Just keep in mind that sometime it's going to give you the HTTPS because your browser is designed to do that. It converts all the non-secure HTTP website to a secure HTTP. We want to make sure that this is an HTTP website. So just check, and if not, you can just reload the page. So it's just like this. It's saying that from here you can do something like this. Very few HTTP website left in the world. Everybody converted to HTTPS by now, right? But the whole point is I want you to see port 80 HTTP, specifically that traffic. Okay. But you can find other things. So, and you can refresh the page a few times and see, generate that kind of traffic. And then we're going to pause, click stop. Okay. So load the HTTP page that's given to you in step 4, right? You can press control and click it, or you can type in that URL on your regular browser on your computer. We're basically going to generate port 80. Now, Wireshark has came a long way from its beginning, right? You have packets that are color coded. Everything is very user friendly. I think that when I wrote your lab, the version was also a prior version. So some of the steps, they have moved some stuff in different menus. They actively update the application. So, when you install updates, there might be new feature. But when you're looking at TCP traffic, you're going to see they are in light purple, light blue for UDP. So the difference between UDP and TCP, right? TCP made sure that the connection is established and acknowledged, whereas UDP, it's just gonna open as it arrives, right? It doesn't care whether it's there or not yet, right? So if you see the packets that are in black, likely that it's have errors. Sometimes it's also in dark red. But your HTTP traffic, you're gonna see that's gonna be a light green. And then if you look at yellow, remember we talked about NetBIOS and WINS just now, right? That will be in yellow, and also your SMB. And then routing, sometimes you would see that with dark yellow, and there are might be other colors that make the charts. And then your dark gray will be your 4-way communication with TCP. So if you have like SYN app, FIN app, you would see that there. Okay. Okay, so these are some of the definition for the components that are in your packet. And you can see that there will be your order number, because remember that all your data is broken into different packages, as you can say, different packets. And it would use a sequence number to determine like which data is going to be first. So the payload on that packets really contain your raw data. The source is the sending system, and the destination is the receiving system. The protocol is usually under either 2 category, UDP or TCP, but variation of those sub protocols. And so it tells you some details here, so you can take a look at that. Now, once we pause, right, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the first packet regardless. So you're going to scroll all the way back up. Take your scroll bar and go all the way to the beginning. Like that was just only like a minute, and I have a lot of traffic. So depending on how large is my network, right? Your capture can contain a lot if a lot of the systems are communicating. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the first packet on the list, and yours will be different than mine. For that moment in time, right? And it's also, the type of traffic that's also coming from your system. We might have some similarity as far as the general. Okay. So this is my packet, my first packet. And when you can do 2 things. You can double click it to see the details on a separate window, but you can also see its detail on the lower left pane, right? The same thing here. So they do it so this way you can expand. Remember we talked about frame. This is when it's structuring your data to prepare for the packet, right? And frame usually contains timestamp. So you would be able to see when that's arrived, and they give you that in UTC. We record everything in UTC. Okay, so it tells you to look at your first packet, and it asks you what kind of packet is it. So importantly, we want to see what kind of packet that is. So it's a TCP packet, right? The color code is the dark gray. So you saw earlier, the dark gray is your TCP, right? SYN and ACK traffic. Is that true? That's definitely true for me. Okay, I have an acknowledgement right there. If you see on the right yours might look a little different, but I have an Act 1. So you would see that it tells me. So all I have to do is record the type of protocol. So in my case, right, I can answer this question. What's my first packet? TCP packet, right? And you can look at yours and see. Just look at your protocol. If it's UDP, put UDP. Okay, then next, what we're going to do is we are going to sort everything by our protocol. So we're going to click the protocol tab. This allows you to, right, to order everything by protocol. And we can do this. I don't know. Sometimes it's not. But what we're going to do is we're going to also filter out the traffic that we want. So instead of looking for the HTTP packet, type in the filter bar. You see the filter bar right underneath the buttons? You type in HTTP, the protocol that you want to filter there, and then press enter or click the blue arrow on the right. So if you type HTTP and press enter in the filter bar, once I do that, it's going to only give me the HTTP traffic that we actually generated ourselves, right? When you open the browser and visit the website, you would generate these HTTP traffic, okay? So when you first, right, when it's connect, well, you know what HTTP, it has to establish connection, then it's acknowledged, and then it submits the request. So it does the get, right? So whenever that you opening up the website and see it, that's a get task for the HTTP. So you see that there, okay? So for the next step, we're gonna go ahead and look at the packet. So all you have to do is count that here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Depending on, you know, when I record, how many systems are connected and so on. So you can just count up the number of, so each entry is a packet, right? So you count out how many entry. You put that there. And then what we're going to do is we are going to open up the first one. We're going to double click it. And then it tells us to go ahead and click on the Ethernet. Now, if you don't see the timestamp information, like I said, go to your frame. But Ethernet tells me the source, right, and the destination. So here it tells me the source, that's a Cisco system, and the destination is a Dell system. So how does it know that, right? Remember how we talked about the MAC address, the first 3 bytes really belongs to the vendor, right? So it sees that there. And the actual MAC address you see is on the right side right here, right? And the first bytes are going to be indicating your vendor. So your source and destination addresses are there. So you want to record that. So this is a MAC address though, okay? The source and the IP address to answer the question is here. Look at your Wireshark. See how the source IP and the destination IP. Who's sending and who's receiving. The MAC address is there. You can also expand it and look at the MAC address if you need to. So in the internet protocol is when you actually see the IP, because that's the third layer of the OSI. When it routes is when you see the IP. So internet protocol, I think I need to fix that on the lab. CIP internet. Okay, then what you're going to do is after you record that, you are going to look at the TCP, the transmission control protocol. Well, HTTP is a TCP protocol, so that's how you're able to expand it. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink that back up, and I'm going to expand transmission control protocol. That's the fourth arrow, the one before HTTP. Right here, transmission control protocol. And I should be able to see all the information, right? The sequence number, the raw packets number, the port. So here's my source port. That's port 80. That's HTTP. And the destination port. Remember how we talked about dynamic port range, right? Look at that. 49,000. That's definitely in the dynamic range. Okay, so put down your source port, your destination port, and then how can I find my payload size? It's on the bottom. That's your actual data. So think of it like a package, right? All of this stuff is like part of the label, so it knows like how it should open it back up and reassemble. And the payload is like the weight of the content inside your package. So your payload size is on the bottom there. Okay. Then you can click on HTTP. Like I said, if you can't find the timestamp, go to frame. So expand HTTP. It also gives me the timestamp there. So the date and time this was generated. And the connection, it tells me keep alive. So it stays connected. So you should be able to expand. So again, on the packet after transmission control protocol, for the next part, click on hypertext transfer protocol, and you should be able to see the time for the timestamp. And then how do I know if this contains request or response, right? What you see down here is it does have requests and it has a full request, so it contains requests. Sometime when you have response, that's from the server. So I'm looking at a packet, right? Depending on the packet, sometimes it's a packet from me to the server, from my system to the server, and then some packet is from the server to the system. Okay. But you often see what it says. It says time since the request frame. So this one, if you look, it is from the server to my system. My system is a .22. So what it tells me is that it received the request. It has not responded, right? It says has not been modified. It's just connected. So keep it alive. It stays connected, and TCP requires that in order for it to respond. Okay. And then when you get a get, that's when you see the page on your screen, which is the next one. Okay, any questions?
I'm not finding a timestamp on my HTTP packet.
Are you looking at an HTTP packet?
Yeah.
And did you expand the hypertext transfer protocol?
Yes.
Okay. So you should say, it should say date there. If you can't find it, you can refer to the frame. Open up your packet, double click on me, see. Yeah, so just go up to where, scroll up to frame, stand up, and it tells you. Yeah, it's because sometimes it does things so. Because did you generate it? You visit the site? Yeah. While you record this Wireshark? Yeah. Okay, let's try it again. Open up your Wireshark. And all right, let's record it and put the blue in. Yes. So, okay, now open up your, go back to your, scroll up. So there, yeah. See how it loads HTTPS right there with your URL. So pick out the S on the URL and force it to. Okay. and then refresh it a couple of times. And then you can pause your Wireshark. You have to force it to be 480. Yeah, by default, browser is gonna take you to HTTPS. So if you don't see the green packets because you didn't visit HTTP website, you visit HTTPS, which uses port 443.
Wait, can I get this wrong?
Hmm?
So it's supposed to be here?
Yeah, if it's not there, go to frame and you will find the
Yeah, right
timestamp.
here? Is this one it?
Mhm. Yeah, when it's sent or recent.
Yeah, go ahead, just account.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, some packets, depending on the packet that you select. So the one that I have, right? But if I go to the next one, it only shows me if modified. So sometimes it has it depending on the traffic, but okay. So we're okay there. If you don't see the timestamp for that one, go to frame and it will tell you. All right. After we do that, what we're gonna do is we are going to look at we're gonna double click the HTTP packet information. We want to see the connection that is established. I just lost track. Okay. So once you see the timestamp containing the request, then we're gonna double click it and then we're gonna view the packet information. So let's try that. Okay, if you expand HTTP still, you can look at the lower pane or double click, it's the same. You would see the connection type. Some of them will say keep alive if it stays connected, right? And then, so you should be able to say that as a connection. And then the user agent that will pertain to the service for that particular system. So if you go down and you would be able to look at your user agent. Let me see if this one has it. So that's the type of server. I can tell this is a Linux server, right? By using that service. So if it doesn't say user agent or software, you can also refer to the server information there and you would see. So if it's a Microsoft server, it will say IIS. That's a web server, right? And then if it's a Linux server, you would see that it's NGINX. And that would run Apache. So sometime you would see user agent as a service package, but it doesn't spell it right out sometimes. So you have to kind of work with what you get. So if you don't have agent information, you can refer to the server information. Let me look at the next packet and tell you to see if it's the same. Let's see. Yeah, so see on this one, if it's sending from my system, it would say Microsoft Crypto API. You might see the user agent that way. But if it's from the server, like what you see, my first packet was response from the server. It would say the server information. So you can put that as a information for the, it's not a user agent, but it's server type. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is they have changed this a little bit. So it doesn't always give you this. Before you should be able to see the follow with the SYN and ACK. So what we're gonna do is we are going to click on analyze at the top. Okay, we're gonna select follow. And since this is an HTTP packet that we're looking at, we're gonna choose HTTP stream. So if you're using UDP, if you're searching for UDP, it's gonna be UDP stream, right? Or other stream. So we're gonna select HTTP stream. And it's going to look at the conversation that's back and forth, right? For that particular set of traffic. Okay. So once I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I have any kind of SYN act. Now, if you look on the right side, I definitely have SYN act. I have act right here for the first packet. That means that it acknowledged, right? So before the system can communicate, it has to have an agreement that it is connecting. So it acknowledged that it's going to connect. You see that there? And then so my my system acknowledged that it's going to connect with the server system. The second packet, the server system acknowledge it's connecting with my system. And then once that happens, right, you have a SYN act. That means that now it synchronized the data, right, and it acknowledged that. And then when it's done, right, after it's synchronized, sometime right away with multiple packets or just once, right? Usually if it's finished, right, so it's going to give you a get. Sometimes it's going to do a fin at the end. So you can say how many packets, you can count that up. So I have 3 acts, right, 1 SYN act and 1 SYN. Now, sometimes they do denial of service this way. They just submit a bunch of requests to your web server and then it gets busy. So you're going to see a flood, right, like 50,000, 60,000 or more of the same packets from the same source. Okay. At that point, what you need to do is you need to take and make sure that you diversify the traffic, redirect it so that way it doesn't bog down your server. Okay. So you're going to see from the same system over and over and over again, and it just keep on going. Okay. So now you see the SYN act. We're going to go ahead and clear the filter. Click the red X. And what we're going to do is we are going to look at UDP next. So we talked about TCP and UDP in the past. What we're going to do is we are going to look at the statistic for UDP. Every network has UDP traffic regardless, right? So if you're connecting to DNS, you're connecting to UDP. So we're going to go statistic, UDP multicast stream. We talked about multicast today. We're going to go ahead and select that. So this gives you all the systems that are using UDP traffic for multicast. It tells you where's the ports is coming from, right? The destination ports, how many packets, the type of address, right? You ask, well, what is this address? So some addresses are V6, some addresses are V4. Here's the V4, right? So this is mine and some other systems. So how can you tell how many streams and that's the size? If you look at the italics at the bottom, it tell you there's 18 streams, right? And then the rates for the stream, the communication for the bits. So look at the italics for the answer for 19. Then we're going to look at endpoints. So endpoints are systems that are connecting into the network, right? It will not have it won't relay that traffic to other systems. So it tells you to go ahead and click statistic and then endpoints. So at the tab at the top, it's going to tell you how many systems. So they are connected Ethernet, right? For the Ethernet systems, it tells you there are 27. And then there's 64 packets that are from IP version 4, 11 packets from version 6 online, right? And then out of those, 125 are TCP and 85 are UDP. So all the communication snapshot that we took, it will tell you the summary of that. And you can also select other things here if you are looking for certain things. Wireshark also is very good at doing Bluetooth analysis and other mobile devices stuff. So you can also select that, right? So you can go through and it asks you how many endpoint systems are shown. So I have a total of 27 on mine that is Ethernet connected. But through that, there are many packets that are communicating across these systems. So look at the tab for the answer. And then we're going to look at the port tab inside that, right? So if you, let me see. Yeah, I'm not getting. Oh, you have to go to TCP. Sorry, I'm ahead of my. Okay, click on TCP tab, and then there's the port right here. So click the TCP tab inside the endpoint. You got to click on this little tab right here, and then click on the port to sort it. So you would see it's gonna go ascending, low to high. It's gonna give you the 80, right? So 80 is the HTTP that we force. And then the 443 is the HTTPS, right? And then you have other ports within. So you can count up how many port 80 that's there. And so it tells me 2, 7, 4, and 4. So 9, 8, that's what, 17, plus another 31. So you add up these packets for port 80 and you would have the total number of packets for port 80. You can also filter some of this out through the functionality of that, but I just want to give you the general overview. Easy. Okay, any question? So again, once I'm in endpoints, click TCP and click the port tab underneath to sort out your port. And then add up the number of packets for port 80. That's going to give you the answer for 23. We're going to close this, and then we're going to look at the visualization on Wireshark. So we're going to go statistic, IO graphs, and you can also look at performance peaks for your traffic. You can also add in, by clicking the plus and the minus here, you can add in your indicator on what you want to track. And for a lot of analysts, this is a very useful tool. So you want to be able to use this, right? Okay. So once we have the graphs, we can take a screenshot and paste it to your lab. Now we're going to look at the conversation for UDP, and we're going to look for DNS. So close the graph option, go back to Wireshark. I'm going to kind of shrink it down so we can follow along. We're going to click statistic, and we're going to go conversations, back and forth communication between the systems. And because it's everybody together, we're going to click UDP, right? More or less, depending on the moment in time that you capture, commonly you would see more UDP conversation than TCP, but also depends on your system and communication, right? So once I click on UDP, I can also go, there's port A and port B. Basically, who's sending, who's talking, right? So which system and which system is talking. So what you can see is if you click port B, it would then sort out the list and it's going to give you all the 53. Okay. 53 is for DNS, right? So what ports are listed under port 50 for port B? I have 53. And I scroll down, I have 443, 1900. And so you just record all the ports that you are using for the second system, right? And then is port 53 being used? Of course. So you see DNS traffic, that's going to be user datagram protocol. Now we're gonna look at version 4 IP address statistic only. So we're gonna go statistic, go down to the bottom. You're gonna see IPv4. And I would normally do, you can do all addresses. This is a new menu that they just added, right? Depending on the version that you use. You can also specify like the destination in the ports to filter. So it adds the filter with your search there. What we're gonna do is we are gonna do IP protocol types, select the third option. And then we are gonna look for the count. So it already counted up for you. So UDP, I have 5,813 packets in that few seconds that I record. And then for TCP, I have 5,245. So you can take a look at how many that you recorded. And roughly in this instance, and in general, I can say that every time that I do a capture, I would often see that UDP is slightly higher than TCP in general. But it also, like I said, there's other factors that we have to consider, like the service that we have, the systems that are connected, the moment in time we capture, what kind of communication between those systems. But in general, we can assume that TCP is a little lower than UDP. But you would see the percentage there. And then I want to focus only on DNS. So we can close this. We come back here. We click statistic and DNS. And click general, right? This is new. So you're going to do an add general. So you can also do query and response only. So general gives you a summary of all your DNS traffic. So the top, I have 118 packets, and you might have something similar. I have no error, but I have one that it couldn't resolve by name. Maybe the URL was wrong. And then for my request and response information is here. Response, I have 59 because there was 59 packets that was submitted for requests. So 100% success in response there. Okay. So this is just a tip of the iceberg for Wireshark. I know that there are trainers that she probably posts video. There's a famous trainer for Wireshark, best friend of the creator. You can probably find her, Laura, I forgot her last name. But you can also find books to be able to train. This is something that you should add to your resume, protocol analysis, right? You can say, able to analyze protocol using Wireshark, okay? We can close, and we can close the application. We can quit without saving unless you want to keep your capture for a later look. Okay, any question? Now, if you run it on the virtual machine, it's generally okay, kind of slower because it uses RAM with RAM, right? So that's fine. And Kali Linux, there is you can't, I think it comes with Wireshark, but you can also run T-Shark, which is the terminal version. Okay, we're gonna do part B real quick. Very easy, right? I show you where you can download your virtual machine. So if you click this link, press Control and click, it's gonna take you to the virtual machine download page. For VirtualBox, you're gonna click this option. So this is a pre-built Linux machine that's available to you at any time. But remember, when you download it, it is compressed using 7-zip. So you have to open it with 7-zip. So that means that if you do this at home, you need to install VirtualBox and 7-zip to run Kali Linux VM. Okay? For VirtualBox, but you can use other options. Okay.
But we're downloading it right now.
We're just gonna download the virtual machine. The application's already installed for us. It's gonna take a couple minutes to download the compressed folder. So you click do not use the weekly. Okay, my experience with the weekly with the students is sometimes the weekly have missing things and you might run into error or problem. Just use the stable one, which is this one, recommended. Okay, click the arrow right here. Now, if you use Edge to download, make sure you save as. You save before and then extract and run. Do not open after as you download. You're gonna have a fatal error. Okay, so save your downloads to download folder. So I have my downloads here, and it's gonna come down like this with the zip icon or zip symbol on my little file icon. Okay, so once you download, you're gonna right click it. Make sure you click on show more options because you might not see 7-zip on this menu. Make sure you click show more options. And then choose 7-zip, extract files. Okay, again, downloaded my Kali VM by clicking this arrow down. Once you have it downloaded, go into your downloads folder, select the compressed file, right click, show more options, select 7-zip, and extract files. Okay. This is gonna take like a couple minutes for it to extract. I'm just gonna say yes to all because I extracted it for Friday class to show them, but I'm just gonna do it again. Right? So you have to extract the download. The reason why they compress it is because the file is very large. It's a lot faster to download if you compress it. So once you extracted it, it's gonna give you this folder without the zip, like this. Okay. This is where you're gonna open your VM. Do not open your VM in the zip folder. You're gonna get a fatal error. Okay. So once I have it extracted, I have a clean folder with the zip symbol. Open that up. Open up the subfolder, and you can double click. You can double click I don't like it when it's like this. You can double click I'm gonna delete. Sorry. You can double click the blue file, or you can do the add. So I'll do that with you. Okay. So we have two ways to open the VM. One is to double click the VBox file inside the extracted folder. Or the second way is open up VirtualBox app. So type VirtualBox or virtual and click the app. I cannot put the same one on my list, otherwise it's gonna. Okay, I'm gonna click the add symbol. Go to my downloads, right? Here's my extracted folder. Open that up. Open up its subfolder, right? Find my blue file. I have two, but so I'm gonna use this one, the first one, and then click open, and then click start. And it's gonna boot your Linux VM, and then you can log in using KALI as a username and KALI as a password. Again, you're gonna click add, go to your downloads folder, find the non-compressed folder, open that up, open up the subfolder, find the blue icon file, click it, and click open. That's gonna load to your playlist, and then you click start. So Kali is gonna load. We're gonna log in. KALI. KALI. Okay, first, we're gonna use terminal. So Linux, if you're not familiar with terminal, similar to Apple Mac OS terminal, right? You can click the black square right here next to Firefox, right? Just click it to open, and you can open as many terminals as you want. It's gonna tell me that I'm this user logging onto this system, and you can Let me increase the font. Sorry. Okay, so here's my terminal. Type in IP space address. I have a loopback address, right? The 127 and the Ethernet 0. Your virtual machine is always going to refer to that as an Ethernet adapter that it's connecting, whether you're on a laptop or not, right? Whether you're using wireless or not, it's only going to be Ethernet. And the 10.0.2.15 here is going to be your IP address. You see that there? It's purple. It's kind of hard to see. Always go to your adapter and look at the IP address. Remember the CIDR that I told you, right? /24, that just indicate 255.255.255.0. Okay. Good night. Take a screenshot. And then what we're gonna do is we are going to manually convert, put in the static IP. So we're gonna click on the blue dragon and we're gonna type advanced network configurations. And so again, to get to step 44, we're going to click on the blue dragon, type advanced network configuration, click that. You can also go through setting, but everything is searchable, right? Search for advanced network configuration. Then in the Ethernet, you're going to see wired connection. You can expand this, double click, and go to IPv4 settings. So we're going to add an IP address to this, okay? We're going to add this IP address on step 48. So you're going to click add and type in 172.168.12. And the X, you can replace it with any value between 100 to 250. So I'm just going to make it 105. And you got to give it a subnet mask. So your subnet mask is going to be a default class B. So you can press tab or click it and type 255.255.0.0. And then you are going to press tab to go to the gateway, right? Remember that you want the system to connect to the internet, so you have to give it a default gateway. So we're going to type in 172.168.12. Good night. .1. 1 for the router. So how many bits is your network ID? Well, I have network ID. So 8 plus 8 is going to give you 16, right? It's a CIDR 16. So 8 for the 255 plus 8 is going to give you 16. Which IP address class is used? This is a default class B, right? We talked about that in the lecture. You can look at the table that I gave you there. So class B, 172 is in the range of class B, and look at the subnet mask. Okay, so once we have the information, we put in the default gateway, you're going to take a screenshot, and then you're going to save. So click save, and then close the configuration prompt. Now let's check to see if it takes effect right away. Open up your terminal, type IP address again, or press the up arrow key. You said, wait a minute, how come it's not changed, right? You have to reboot. So type reboot for it to refresh, and then so Linux is like that. You change something, you gotta reboot for it to update the information, refresh it after you restart. Okay, so do you still see the same IP address? Yes or no? After you reboot. So after we reboot, we're gonna check the IP address and we can answer 54. We have a lot of time, so most of you will have like almost an hour. So take your time going through this. Okay, so once it boots up, I'm gonna go ahead and log in, check my IP address, and I'm gonna try to do the command for 55. I'm gonna tell you now that the command, the way it is, it would not write over the IP address that you previously added, even if you reboot, because two things are missing: your default gateway and also some of the information for it to be able to establish connection. So I put a note on there that if you want to successfully do this, you have to change configuration file, right? By practice, you should copy that configuration file before you change it. But I put some information here for you to do that with text editor. So you would do a sudo nano and you would go into here, and then you would want to change this. But we're not going to do this today, but I want to show you how you can do that, because on my Friday class, right, they're like, oh, how come it didn't take? Well, it didn't have all the information you need: the net mask, the gateway, the DNS server information, and everything else. Maybe without the DNS server, but anyway, that's how you can change settings in Linux in the terminal, is through the text editor and the configuration file. Okay, let's log back in. And so we're gonna check if our IP address took. So type IP address, right? So now I have the new IP address that I had added, which is the 172 with the subnet mask that I have added. Okay, which is a CIDR 16. You see that there? But it also keep the 10.0.2.15. This is something that the virtual machine always going to refer to, because that's the default setting for it. So you would see that there. And then you have the INET 6 address, right? This is the IP address that we added. Remember, we added to that adapter. Okay. Now what we're going to do is it does allow you to copy and paste in Kali, but you can type in your command. Sorry, try to navigate through here. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do sudo, that's super user do elevate your privilege to be able to change your IP address. Okay, and we're gonna do an add command, and we're gonna do a 12.0.0.x, and that x can be 100 to 254. I'm gonna do 105 again. And we're gonna do a CIDR 8 for a default class A. And we're gonna do a def Ethernet adapter 0. That's the first Ethernet adapter in your system. Have a good night, Nando. Press enter, and it's gonna ask you for your password. At this point, just type, don't pay attention to the blinking cursor. So KALI and press enter, right? So it tells me that it did not, it did not want to take, sorry, I had a space. I had a syntax on mine. Give me a second. Let me take the space out of this. Good night. So even if it took it here, right? Remember no space if you're CIDR, and then you do a DED, your first Ethernet adapter, just the only one. And then we're going to check the IP address again. So type IP, right? So it stores it here, right? And it's telling me it's a scope. We can try to also reboot. But technically, you need to change all your adapter information in the configuration. Because you don't have your router information in the command itself. So after I reboot, I want to verify my IP and I wanted to take a screenshot of it. It's crazy how Kali is different on Friday, right? With the command to today. So it's okay. Changes is okay. All right, IP address. See how after I reboot the 12 address, it didn't take because I didn't complete it. I didn't have a gateway. I didn't have the information, so that's typical. Okay, take a screenshot and then you go down and you answer the question, right? So if we want to do a show command, sudo IP address, show def Ethernet 0, type in your password. Don't look at the cursor, just type. So with this command, it's like looking at IP address, but it's only going to give you the adapter Ethernet 0 compared to additional loopback stuff that you get with IP address. So if you do a show only for the adapter you're looking at, it's going to give you only that adapter configuration. So what is the state? You would see it in green. It says up. If it's down or if it's off, it's going to say down. Okay. And then you want to shut down in Linux, most system, including Red Hat, you're going to do shut down now. Now gives you the parameter 0 seconds for it to immediately shut down. But if you just type shut down, it's going to count down 60 seconds. So after you take a screenshot or whatever you need, right, you can shut it down and then answer the question upon completing this lab, right? What did you learn about Wireshark and IP configuration with Kali Linux? So we learned how to look at packets, right? Look at timestamp of the packets, look at the protocol of the packet. We filter the packet by protocol. We look at statistic of specific type of protocol. We also looked at graphs. So you can go back to the steps and look at what you've done and look at your screenshot. And then in Kali Linux, we know how to put in static IP address through advanced network configuration settings. And then we will be able to check your IP address in command line or the terminal. And then how is that related to your career, right? Tell me, how is this going to be for your job? You might be wanting to do IT work, or you want to go into cybersecurity. You would use Wireshark to monitor your network or look at potential attacks or malware, etc., etc. And then save your work and you can submit it on Canvas. I actually did a lot faster this time in this class based on Friday experience. Okay. All right. So once we're done, you can close everything. Make sure we save or upload our stuff to our cloud so we have our file. You save it to USB and submit it on Canvas. I should be pretty caught up in your class for your grades, hopefully. Unless I have a few left to kind of get through, but my Friday I'm a little outstanding, so I have to catch up along with my online classes and Wednesday class. Okay, any question? Okay, so practice command line, practice Wireshark, right? You gotta fine tune your skills. Do it one time won't make you an expert. So go back, you know where to go to get the product. You finish, make sure you get everything before you leave. Don't leave stuff. Might go missing. I'll be around until about 8:30. Yeah, fine. Sure.
Okay. And whatever needs to be added on. Any in Windows or in. The writing. We'll get it.
I want it being done, but my computer froze up.
Man,
What do you mean?
Not grabbing all type of man. Basically, leaves. Does.
They use.
And or. The main was choice browse.
It won't, even if you extract it.
It's not being.
It might pull out the file headers.
Oh, it worked best.
Because when you
Yeah,
compress,
I got it.
you
Yeah.
modify the file headers so smaller. And
Oh,
you leave stuff the file headers back.
Yeah,
So it-
copy the link.
some tools is vice versa, it works in multiple. Install 7-zip and. Yeah, so if you look on the right hand.
Good. Yes, sir.
Right, so first we need to search for this, so we have to go to.
It's like free now. So. Sat down. Yeah, I'm on parking right now, but my computer froze. So what I did. So I have to go on.
Yeah,
What's that?
especially in
Have it easy.
a lot of.
So you.
Linux is a lot of a backup. It's a lot of backup. And users, end users are gonna see in Windows, but especially in larger networks. There's enough Linux in there to make it certainly worthwhile. In Vandal Linux, and that's a great thing. Like, we're using Kali right now, those commands, the actual thing we're using. Those go over, if you grab that over, if you want to. It's all. Or build their own. In open source. And that's why there are so many, that's why there are billion. Of versions of what makes it on the next. This is our road. See you next week.
Yeah, so it's in a place the.
Couple months. But it's like game of Othello or reversal, or, you know, the game where put this down, they flip back and forth. You never heard of the game of Othello? Okay, that's.
Yeah, the
But-
other part.
Don't
So
grab
it
these
is
top,
very
right?
common port, right, or well-known port, and then it might be, you know, a lot of times the system here, when it connects to the internet.
Or it's start
it's
out, you
gonna
just.
port, so it goes, right,
And you have to capture this.
if it lists under, yeah, you would just need to identify it. Other questions? Oh, see, you guys are applying all of these terms, and I love it. You can see it.
I'm giving it an IP address, right?
Don't, and this.